Yeah, like I said, I don't get emotional with this show as some people do, but that's just the way I'm wired. It doesn't have anything to do with the quality of the show. I love the show, but
I think that's kind of how psychopaths are wired too.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 101 of the Nerd You're Looking For podcast, a weekly nerd culture podcast that discusses the culture through various segments. My name, of course, is Patrick Kuhn, alongside my co-host, as always, that Tyler Hunt. How's it going, man?
It's going really well, man. How are you?
Not great. It's been a really rough week, but I'm definitely looking forward to recording, kind of taking a break from all the shit that's been going on.
Yeah, now. Man, that makes one of us, so that's good. Just kidding.
No, I just been sick all week, and then work's been crazy, and then my air conditioner broke. It's just been like one thing after another.
Yeah, that sucks, man. I know that a broken air conditioner is not fun or cheap, so.
But other than that, it's been okay, I guess. Yeah, that's kind of a bummer way to start an episode, but.
For sure.
As always, we're going to start off this episode by kind of just checking in with each other. We call it What We're Into. So what are you into this week, Tyler?
All right, so just a peek behind the curtain. Before we started recording, you asked me what I was into, and I told you that I was into the Purge election year, which I very much am into, and we'll talk about in a second. But there's another thing I'm into I want to talk about real quick. It's a Disney movie I had never seen before called 101 Dalmatians.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about this.
I kind of figured you might have. So, yeah, I actually sat down and watched 101 Dalmatians on Thursday, that classic animated version, not the one with Glenn Close from the 90s, so I could talk about
I feel
it
like you need
on
to
this
just watch
episode.
all of them. There's a sequel, too, isn't there?
Yeah, 102 Dalmatians, so
okay.
I guess I gotta watch that for next week, right? But no, I'm not gonna obviously linger on 101 Dalmatians too long, but it wasn't bad. I mean, I think that with Disney movies, it's kind of a nostalgia thing, so whenever you watch it as an adult and you didn't see it as a kid, some of that magic, I guess, is missing, but it's not a bad movie. It's kind of cool to go back and watch those types of movies and watch that classic hand-drawn animation. As I'm not trying to diminish, computer-generated animation that we're seeing a lot of now, but there's something about the hand-drawn stuff that's really cool to still go back and watch. So it's definitely, I can see why it's a classic. I don't know why I never saw it as a kid, but I definitely had to bring up 101 Dalmatians at some point.
Yeah, I completely forgotten about that. I actually thought you were just going to bitch about MoviePass.
No. I'm gonna leave that alone until I get dicked by it, I guess.
Yeah.
All right. So, like I said, the Purge election year, I ended up going and seeing that Thursday
night. That's a weird
transition. Yeah. I'm just gonna go from 101 Dalmatians to the Purge. No, the Purge election year, the third movie in the Purge franchise came out this weekend. I went and saw it Thursday night. These movies are kind of a guilty pleasure for me. They're obviously nothing too special. To me, though, it's kind of a cool concept that I think that they could do some cool things with. I remember when the first one came out, a lot of people gave it a lot of shit because they're like, oh, that would never happen. But I think that's a terrible way to go into watching a movie because so much of what we consume could never happen. Yeah. So honestly, just shut the fuck up. That's really dumb whenever you say that is a reason you're not going to see a movie. So like I was saying, the idea of the Purge to me is something that's kind of interesting. It's something that I think that they could do a lot of cool stuff with in a movie like this, but unfortunately, it's kind of been the same thing 3 times in a row now. The main characters are on lockdown in their house or their apartment or whatever, and they got their window barriers up, and they're just going to wait out the Purge. But oh no, something's gone wrong, and now they're out on the street during the Purge. Yeah, of course, 'cause
it's a movie.
Yeah, but I mean, at some point, like, I think there's so much cool stuff you could do, like, on a night where anybody can do anything with no ramifications. You don't always have to end up with just innocent people fighting for their lives on the street. Yeah. I don't know what the answer is for a better story, but
that's not what this movie cares to do, or these movies care to do. They have an audience, and they're going to just keep doing the same thing.
I mean, I will say that the second and third movies are more what I was looking for with them as opposed to the first one. I know that you had mentioned you've never seen them. The first one is just kind of Ethan Hawke's family being hunted in their house. The second and the third one are more people. It's more global.
Yeah.
People are in the streets. You see more of what's going on throughout the city. So this one is fun, but there are a few parts where the acting is so cringeworthy that it completely took me out of the movie. Like Frank Grillo's in it, and he's fine. But there's this one young actress in it that only pops up a couple times, but it might be some of the worst acting I've ever seen in any movie. And
well, you didn't see the movie I'm going to talk about.
She's disposed of pretty quickly, but it really took me out of the movie, so that was disappointing. These movies are kind of advertised as horror movies.
Yeah.
And they're not. There's a couple silly jump scares, but it's more of a thriller. I don't know how you would classify this movie, but don't go into it thinking it's horror. It's not good. It's not bad. It's just kind of there. And like I said, it's a guilty pleasure. So if you ever see it on Netflix, give it a watch, or give any of them a watch, but I wouldn't recommend making this like a theater trip. So that's it, man. The Purge election year is just kind of there.
Yeah, the first one, I mean, it may just because of the masks, but the first one kind of gave me a Strangers type of feel.
Yeah, I guess that's a good comparison. I mean, they're being hunted within their home. So that
is there a reason why, or is it just because, like in the Strangers, they're just because they're home?
Ethan Hawke, I'd have to go back and watch it, but his character is like the head of this company that specializes in home security for the Purge. So I think that has something to do with why he's targeted.
Okay.
So like obviously if you're rich, you can pretty much lock down your home and be okay. And it's kind of the poor people fighting it out and killing each other. And that's kind of the gist of it.
Cool, man.
All right. You want to go ahead with your movie?
Unfortunately, like I mentioned in the bummer intro, I haven't had a whole lot of time to watch anything or really consume any media. This week, I did, however, squeeze in a movie, and unfortunately, it was probably one of the worst choices I've made in a while. Cell, which is a movie that I guess has been in like production hell for a really long time. Well, I guess it's been made for a really long time, and then they just finally just like dumped it. Like it doesn't really have a theatrical release. It just kind of got dumped on VOD, and it's a shame how terrible it is. It's probably one of the worst movies I've seen this year. Like I can't decide if I like or dislike Huntsman Winter's War or this movie.
Wow.
Like it was really bad, which is a shame because it's based on a Stephen King book, which I've never read the book, so I don't know how good it is, but he's a writer that I've read several of his books. I haven't read a lot of it because obviously he writes so much. It's kind of hard to keep up with him, but I've read several of his kind of bigger books, and I'd like to say that I'm a fan of his. If this movie is anything like the book, then no, thank you. He actually wrote the screenplay for the movie, but I looked on IMDb and there's a lot of other writers credited, so I don't know if he wrote the original and they kind of rewrote it, and I don't know. But John Cusack and Samuel are in this movie. They star in this movie, which they're kind of returning from 1408, which is another Stephen King adaptation that I think is severely underrated. I really, really like that movie a lot. I mean, John Cusack is kind of my OG man crush. It's kind of diminished over the years. Much like his face, his career has not aged well. He's not making great career choices. I've heard that he's great in Love and Mercy, but I haven't gotten around to that one yet. But he's kind of not quite to the Nicolas Cage level as far as just kind of doing whatever comes his way. But yeah, this movie was really, really, really bad. Like every aspect of it was bad. Unfortunately, the acting, which was surprising because John Cusack and Samuel L. are both in it, but they looked so fucking bored in this movie. Like Samuel L. does this one monologue, and I'm just like, this is not only is the writing not good, but he just looks so like just out of it. Like he doesn't care. He's just reading it off a teleprompter. It's really bad. There's one instance in the beginning of the movie where John Cusack is getting shot at, and it's like bouncing off the wall, and he's just kind of like kneeling down, like flailing and just screaming. It's like the worst overacting I've ever seen, and I've seen several Nick Cage movies, so it was pretty excruciating to watch. Towards the end, I was just like, come on, like it's only an hour and a half long. And by about an hour, I was like, this movie can be over at any point. Like, I'm okay with it. The writing's really bad, which is surprising because, like I said, Stephen King wrote the original screenplay, I guess. It doesn't make a ton of sense. Like, they try way too much. Like, I don't know what the book is about, but basically the concept is that there's this signal that gets sent out through all of these cell phones that turn people, and they're not necessarily zombies, but they're more like the crazies and the crazies.
Yeah.
But they work together, and it's really strange, and they spend a lot of the time, just a ridiculous amount of time in the movie trying to explain exactly what's happening. I don't really care. Honestly, I don't care what's happening to these people. And it's just really weird. And they do this one thing with John Cusack, who just wrote a graphic novel. His character wrote this graphic novel, and apparently the main bad guy is the guy that he created in his graphic novel, but they don't really explain like what's going on with that. And I don't know if he's actually real. Like, it's very weird. They try a bunch of different stuff, and the ending is really fucked up. Like, I'm not quite sure what they were trying for at the end, but at that point in the movie, I really didn't give a shit. So I was just happy that the movie was over. It was really, really bad. The directing was bad. Like, there was a couple of moments where he tried to do like these really bad lens flare, and you can't even tell what's going on. Like, they're like looking off in the distance, but there's really bad lens flare, so you can't even tell what they're looking at. It's really bad. Like, every aspect of this movie is bad.
That's really disappointing. I read Cell in high school, so...
Does it sound like anything that I just described?
No, I don't, I was trying to put it together because it's been obviously over 10 years since I read it.
Sure.
But I don't remember anything with a graphic novel. I mean, yes, they're like zombie-like crazies, but I don't remember them working together. I see there's just so much that you said I don't remember, and I feel like I would, even though it's been forever since I read that book. I know that this definitely has been in developmental hell for a while. I think the first adaptation of it was supposed to be directed by Eli Roth.
Yeah. And
then he dropped out, and I was really excited to see this. I didn't have high hopes for it because it was going straight to video on demand. I don't know if I'll watch it or not. I think I will, but
I will definitely tell you not to watch this movie.
You make it sound like it's
worth it.
You make it sound like it's a painful experience.
It's really, really hard to watch. Like, from the moment it starts, like, cause that scene that I told you that was terrible overacting, it's probably 15 minutes into the movie. So, I knew pretty much right away. I was like, this is not for me.
See, when this book came out, and you and I were talking about it a little bit before we started recording. When this book came out, the main character played by John Cusack doesn't get infected because he's like he doesn't want a cell phone. And, 10, 11 years ago, that wouldn't be unheard of. But
Sure.
Now in 2016, it's hard to believe that anyone on the planet would be immune from this,
Yeah.
So I don't know how, I know that that's kind of a nitpicky thing in the scheme of all the stuff you just said that's bad. I just think that this is one of those books that kind of dates itself.
Yeah. In the movie, basically what happens is that his cell phone dies, and he's talking to his wife, who is estranged, like they live.
Yeah.
So he moved away. He gives us like really like it's supposed to be emotional monologue towards the end of the movie, but at that point I didn't really care.
Is the movie about him like trying to cure his son or his daughter?
He's trying to get back to his wife and his son.
See, I think
it's really weird.
If anybody listening is familiar with the book, forgive me if I'm wrong. I didn't really prep for this, but I thought that the book, he's like traveling with his son and he's trying to find a cure.
No. He's traveling. Basically what happens is he doesn't get infected because his cell phone dies when this whole event happens, because it all happens at once. And then he's trying to escape. He's in an airport. He's trying to escape the airport, and he gets to the, like, tram, like it's an underground subway in the airport. And Samuel and a few other people are down there as well. And their excuse for not getting infected is their cell phones don't work in the subway. Okay, that's cool. Okay. Whatever. And then Samuel and John Cusack decide to leave, just walk down the tunnel, and they escape. And they get to John Cusack's apartment, and that kind of starts the whole them deciding to go and see if his son's okay. Son and wife / ex-wife-ish. And so they're traveling. Him and Samuel are traveling. So yeah, it does have that aspect to it. But no, he doesn't meet up with his son until like the last 10 minutes of the movie.
I just Wikipedia'd it. I'm remembering incorrectly. You're right. In the book, he doesn't find his son till the end, but he travels with a guy and a teenage daughter, and that's what I was.
Yes, I did mention that while they're back at the apartment, because it didn't matter within what I was trying to explain. Yeah. But while they're back in his apartment, a girl that lives in the apartment.
Alice, maybe?
Sure. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. We should probably,
She was bad. The actress that played the particular character was bad. Pretty much everybody was bad in this movie.
Yeah, that's a bummer. And I didn't put this in. We
spent way too much time talking about this.
Just to end on a positive note, I didn't put this in nerd news, but did you see the pictures of Matthew McConaughey as Randall Flagg for the Dark Tower?
I have not, no.
It was just kind of set pictures, but it seems like there is a good Stephen King adaptation coming soon.
That's awesome.
That'd be good.
One of the few that I haven't read.
Yeah, I want to read that, but it seems like there's graphic novels and comics. There's so much to it, I don't even know where to start, so I'll have to look into that.
For sure.
All right, cool.
Speaking of graphic novels, our next segment is just plainly called Comics. Tyler and I read a ton of comics. Well, maybe Tyler read a ton of comics. I only read one this week. But, we just like to spotlight one or two. So, Tyler, what'd you read this week?
I wasn't sure. I got a bunch this week. Well, not a bunch, like 5 or 6. And I read through them not knowing what I wanted to talk about. I was just kind of waiting to see what jumped out at me. And it's a comic I talked about.
That's the best way to do it.
It is. But, like some weeks it's like, well, this is Batman 52. I have to talk about the end of Batman. So there's certain weeks where I know that there's a big event that we have to talk about. But Daredevil number 8, which I've talked about Daredevil, I think a couple times now. And number 8 starts a new story arc. And it's kind of off to a really cool start. I've never seen them do anything like this in Daredevil before. It's very reminiscent, this issue at least, of Casino Royale, which is my favorite Bond movie. So it's probably no surprise that I like this so much. So Matt's in China playing in a poker tournament. And so the basis for the story is he can't see the cards. He's blind.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's blind. So, but obviously he has heightened senses and whatnot, so he can sense the other players. So like their heartbeat, any nervous tics they have, and he can kind of decipher when they're bluffing. And that's kind of how he's getting by, and he makes it to the finals. And you have no idea why he's here in this tournament. Like, it's very out of character from him. He's even kind of dressed in a tux like James Bond. But like I said, he makes his way to the final round, and his opponent is a mind reader, who apparently he knows is hired by the casino kind of as like a failsafe, so they get their earnings back and they don't lose it to somebody, millions of dollars to somebody like Matt Murdock. So, obviously this guy being a mind reader, he can't really read Matt's mind very well because Matt doesn't know what his cards, know what his cards are. So they're kind of having, It's like a mental combat back and forth. Like Matt's trying to decipher him, like his heartbeat and stuff, and he's trying to read his mind. And they play it out on the page like a physical combat in their mind. So it's kind of cool. Matt ends up winning. Spoiler alert. But you still don't know why he's in China. And then there's a cliffhanger at the end with another hero that I won't spoil. That kind of plays into why he might be in China, and I don't know for sure, but it's very reminiscent of what's going on in Invincible Iron Man. So Tony Stark and another hero are in China kind of dealing with some stuff. And one of those two heroes it's not Iron Man, shows up at the end. So it kind of seems like Daredevil's crossing over with that a little bit. And I might end up being wrong, but it just seems like a coincidence that these characters are in China together. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, man. I'm a couple of issues behind. I had heard good things about this particular issue. Unfortunately, when I was on third shift, when I went 1 week they were sold out of an issue of Daredevil. And I don't remember if it was 6 or 7. I can't remember which one it was.
Yeah.
So I just recently got that missing issue from Midtown because I always wait and let a couple issues pile up before so I don't have to pay for extra shipping and stuff for one issue. So anyways, I'm a couple issues behind. I did like how they placed something similar in an issue with Elektra where she hands him a cell phone and she's like, why can't you see what I see? And it's because obviously he's blind and it's something that obviously I don't think about because I can see, but I mean, obviously that's played up pretty well in Daredevil because he can't see. So I like when they play that up a little bit more than most comics books would. So
yeah, it was kind of a cool take on the character. I was really happy with. So, all right, man, what are you reading this week?
Well, the only one that I read this week, because it's been a pretty busy week for me, I won't bitch anymore about it, I promise. But I read Black Panther #3. I went to the comic book shop this week. Unfortunately, I didn't get to do my video because I'd worked 10 hours that day and then I'd been sick, but I was feeling better than I had the previous couple of days. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go to the comic book shop. I'm going to come home, eat dinner, power through this video. I'll be fine. Because I really enjoy doing those videos and it bums me out when I have to skip one. And I got home and I think it was just like my body just shut down. It was like, nope, you're home. You're going to bed. I think I ended up going to bed at like 8:30 that night. I was just exhausted. So I didn't get to do my video, but I did read this comic book. It came out this week. And I am pleasantly surprised at how much I like it for multiple reasons. One, I got this book because even though I am a huge Marvel fan, I feel like I say this a lot. I'm a huge Marvel fan, but I don't know a ton about this particular character. Like I've mentioned a million times before on the podcast, my introduction to comic books has always been Spider-Man. I've read a ton of comic books growing up, but it was always Spider-Man. So I didn't really kind of know a ton about the Marvel Universe. I really only knew it through what was happening in Spider-Man and kind of his team-ups and stuff like that, which is great because he's a great guy to team up with. So I did learn a lot about the Marvel Universe, but he's not a character that I knew a ton about. So when this book came out a couple of months ago, I was like, well, I'm going to jump on this train now because I need to know more about the character. He was awesome in Civil War. His new movie, I love the writer, director, the guy the Chad, whatever his last name is, that was in Civil War was awesome. So I'm definitely really looking forward to that movie. So I was pleasantly surprised that I really liked this comic because I didn't know a ton about the character, but also because the writer, and I'm not even going to try to mispronounce his name because it's just I'd never seen this name before. It was his first comic book ever. Yeah. And so I was surprised at how well he's doing so far. I mean, he's a professional writer, so obviously he knows what he's doing as far as that's concerned, but the comic book is a kind of a different beast. So I'm surprised at how well he's kind of transitioning, but it's just a fantastic book, man. I don't know that you actually ever said what book it was. I mean, I put it together, but it's Black Panther. Yeah, I've said it. I said it at the beginning. I'm almost positive I did.
You sure? I'll find out when I'm editing.
I'm almost positive I said it. Maybe I didn't, and I apologize for that. But, it's Black Panther #3. I think I said it way before I went on this little tangent or side little thing about, how I was sick and all that stuff. I'm pretty sure I said it. Anyways, Black Panther #3. It's great. I love, and I think I've mentioned this a couple of times, especially when I talk about, Darth Vader, which is a book that's coming to an end soon, which I'm bummed about. But anyways, I love when characters are vulnerable, especially superheroes, because you don't really always see that. I mean, you see superheroes fail typically within a comic book, especially when it's a new villain, they'll fail the first time, and then of course they defeat them by the end of the comic book or by the end of the story arc. But I love this particular comic book because he fails miserably a lot in this book. And it's always kind of nice to see a character be vulnerable. And they talk about kind of the duality of him being a warrior, but also a king, which I appreciate that aspect of the character. And just the fact that I don't really know a ton about the character. So it's just really cool to just kind of just brush up on the character. And I feel like diehard Black Panther fans are going to appreciate this book a little bit more than I do, just because there are some things that I'm just kind of confused about, just because I don't know a ton about the character. Not just that, but just like the side characters and stuff like that. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of threads in these 3 issues that I'm a little bit confused about. I don't know if they're new characters or what, but there's a lot going on, which I appreciate as a new reader, but I'm also a little confused about.
Yeah.
So I think diehard fans are going to like this book a lot more than I do, but I really am digging it so far. The writing is great. The artwork is just phenomenal, man. It really pops. It's great. I love every aspect of this book. It's good. I think it's good for an introduction, like I'm using it for, and for diehard Black Panther fans.
Cool. Oh, yeah, I dropped this book after issue 1.
Did you not like it?
Well, we talked about issue 1. I think you're the one who brought it up, it being exposition heavy. And
I think you have to with a number 1 like this.
You're the one who said it, man. Just too much dialogue, and that was something that we see whenever somebody writes a comic for the first time. They're too heavy with the dialogue, and they don't let the art speak for itself sometimes. And I didn't have any patience for that.
It got better.
It was like right before Rebirth, and
Sure.
like I dropped that. I dropped Punisher because that issue 1 was garbage.
I haven't read issue 2 yet.
There was just a few comics out there I had to get rid of, and Black Panther didn't make the cut because of issue 1.
Yeah, Rebirth wasn't as much of I don't want to say burden, but it wasn't as much of a commitment for me, because I'm only going to read Rebirth, and I'm going to read Batman and All-Star Batman, and then I picked up The Flash just so I had a non-Batman DC title.
Yeah. Cool, man.
All right, so our next segment is called Nerd News. Tyler compiles all the big nerd headlines throughout the week since the last time we talked, and we discuss them. So what is Nerd News this week?
So just 3 quick stories this week. So the first one is a rumor, and I don't know if it'll ever come to fruition, but the rumor out there right now is that 20th Century Fox is willing to play ball with Marvel and allow an X-Men Avengers type crossover.
Okay.
So again, that's just something that somebody on, I think, Collider had heard. No telling if it's true or not, but I'm sure that they saw the success Sony had and the excitement that Sony has for the next Spider-Man movie. And, you know, the fan and critical reaction to that character once Marvel kind of got its hands back on it. So they probably see some dollar signs there.
It's surprising.
Yeah, I don't know that it'd ever happen. I don't know that, honestly, at this point, Disney and Marvel need those characters. And I don't know how you would fit them into the Marvel universe without completely rebooting it.
Yeah.
How do you just say, like, oh, by the way, there are all these characters that we've never seen before, even though aliens have invaded and all of this stuff has happened. They've just kind of sat back.
Yeah, that would be pretty weird. And I mean, they've done so much. I want to say damage, because Days of Future Past was great, and it kind of wiped the slate clean. But they've done so many of these movies, and they've created this basically their own universe. And Deadpool was so successful. I know Apocalypse was disappointing as far as critically. I don't know how it did on box office, because I don't necessarily follow that as much as some people do. But I mean, they were going so well. Like, I mean, that was always the thing. Well, Sony did it because Sony was doing terrible with Spider-Man, but Fox was never going to do it because Fox had their own franchise and they were doing so well with X-Men and now Deadpool. I mean, obviously they've had a few hiccups along the way, most notably, of course, the Wolverine Origins movie, and then, of course, The Last Stand, which we've talked about in one of our comic book redo segments. But I think that it's just surprising that they would even consider it.
Yeah, again, who knows if it ever even come to fruition. I think it'd be too hard to do it creatively. I don't think that Marvel or Disney needs to shoehorn those characters in at this point. They've kind of done well enough for themselves with the characters they have. So I don't know that it ever happened, but I mean, it'd be interesting. That's kind of what we all want, is one cohesive Marvel universe. But I think that if you're ever going to do that, some kind of reboot has to happen. And that's obviously years and years away, especially on the Marvel side of things.
For sure.
All right. Wreck-It Ralph 2 was officially announced. It's kind of disappointing because this next one, they kind of hinted that him and what is it? What's the little girl's name played by Sarah Silverman?
I have no idea,
like,
man. It's been years since I watched
Vanellope
it.
Sweets or something. They're going to be traveling through the internet or something along those lines, which is kind of disappointing because I don't really want them to get away from like the arcade feel.
Sure.
That was kind of the charm of the first movie, but obviously that movie did really well. I think you and I both loved it quite a bit. I don't want to speak for you, but I thought we did.
Yeah, I loved it a lot.
So yeah, we're getting a sequel to that, and I believe 2018.
Do you think that the success of Inside Out prompted, because I mean, if you think about it, the plots are pretty similar.
I don't know that I see that.
Well, I mean, Wreck-It Ralph, you're traveling through arcades, and then in Inside Out, you're traveling through the mind. I feel like those movies.
The Hobbit, you're traveling through Mordor. I don't get
whatever,
what you're saying.
Fuck you.
No, I mean, I guess they're both animated movies. They're both Disney movies, and they both
That's
have
not what I meant.
They both have a traveling aspect to it. I don't know.
I'm not saying that Wreck-It Ralph wasn't successful. I just think that they're very similar types of movies.
Yeah, I remember after the first one came out, there was talk of a sequel, and I don't remember who involved with it was saying this, but somebody was saying that hopefully in the second one they could get more video game characters in it and kind of expand on that. So I hope that they still are able to do something like that, and they don't focus too heavily on like, oh, now we're going to go visit Google, and now we're going to go visit Facebook, like that kind of shit. So I don't know. We'll see.
All right, man.
Last one is about a show. I don't watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Nice.
They might be casting Ghost Rider for that show.
Okay.
That's the rumor. There was, I guess, a San Diego Comic-Con advertisement on a bus or a train or something in San Diego, and it's an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. logo with like a chain that's on fire. And then a casting call they put out sounds like they are casting, I guess, the brothers that were Ghost Rider and the Ultimate comic version of it. I'm not familiar with it. I might be butchering that, but they're not. It doesn't sound like they're casting Johnny Blaze. It's a different group of characters that have been Ghost Rider in different iterations of the comic. So that's the rumor right now. It sounds like it'd be crazy for that character to pop up on that show, but I will say it piques my interest enough to where I might start watching that show again.
No, thank you.
I think Ghost Rider is better off with a Netflix show.
Yeah, for sure. And we've talked about that before.
Yeah.
I would ask a question, but I'm pretty sure you're just going to bust my balls again.
Well, I love busting your balls, so please go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just making a joke. I don't actually have a question.
Oh, okay. Well, that is the end of Nerd News.
All right, man. So our main topic changes from episode to episode. This week, we are going to do a review of Game of Thrones Season 6. Of course, as always, we're going to kind of treat this very similar to our movie reviews. We're going to go through the motions with that as far as the broad strokes, story, performances, and then an added bonus towards the end when we do these movie or TV reviews is we'll go through a couple of notable episodes. We used to do this where we'd go through every single episode, and that was just ridiculous, and it just kind of was too much. So we're going to go through a few notable episodes, and then, of course, we're going to give us a star rating. As always, we'll try to keep it as spoiler-free as possible. I think it's really tough, especially with this season, with it kind of wrapping up a lot of storylines, so to speak.
Oh, I wasn't planning on staying spoiler-free at all.
Oh, really?
There's so much to talk about. Like, it's hard to dance around it, but if you want to try,
I'm going to attempt to, but like I said, before you cut me off,
I just wanted to put it out there that I completely planned on going balls deep. Like, it's all over Facebook and the internet. If you don't know shit that happens, you're dumb.
But anyways, what I was trying to say is that it's kind of tough with things wrapping up. I mean, this is one of the last seasons, so a lot of these story arcs that they've been building through a couple of seasons now are coming to an end, so it's kind of tough not to spoil them. So hopefully you watch season 6, because apparently Tyler's just going to spoil the shit out of it.
I'll try. I'll put on my dance shoes and tiptoe around him.
I've actually seen you dance. You're actually a pretty nice dancer, so we'll see that.
That's a weird thing to say.
This entire episode has just been a bunch of weird shit that I've said.
I think it's just a combination of a long week and you being weird. I don't know.
I think it's probably more the latter. Anyways, so we start off each review by kind of giving our general overview of what we thought. So we call it Broad Strokes. Tyler, Broad Strokes of Game of Thrones Season 6.
It's kind of hard with Game of Thrones to kind of keep everything in a season-by-season vacuum because the story told from Season 1 all the way up to Season 6 is so cohesive and flows so naturally together that it feels like one giant story as opposed to separated seasons.
It's hard for me to decipher what happened in Season 5 versus Season 4. It just really flows together really well.
Absolutely. So, I mean, the gist with Season 6 is, almost everything that we've ever wanted to happen with this show happened or was put into place to happen next season. So it's been really exciting. A lot of big moments in this season, which some could probably argue have kind of been missing from maybe at Season 4 or 5. But even thinking back to that, it's just consistently moving forward. It's been a lot of fun. So there's a lot of fan service in Season 6. And it's definitely showing signs of the plot winding down or winding to a conclusion, which is exciting and sad at the same time. But I mean, all in all, this season wraps up. There's 13 episodes of Game of Thrones left, and Season 6 kept me excited for that and invested in what's going to come to fruition in these last 13 episodes that come out next year and the year after.
So, do you know, have they announced how they're going to do it? Is it just going to be
From what I understand, next year, Season 7 will be 7 episodes, and then Season 8 will be 6 episodes.
Okay, cool. I didn't know if they had officially announced that or not.
That's what I'm under the impression is happening. I don't know if that came from an official announcement or speculation, but I'm pretty sure it's official.
All right, cool. So my broad strokes is very similar. Obviously, we both love this show, so we're both going to be pretty similar as far as our review is concerned. This is the first season. As far as I understand, I don't read the books, but from what I understand, this is the first season that doesn't really follow the books. He hasn't written this part of the story yet. I'm sure he has given them kind of directives, what he plans on doing with the characters in the books, but he has not written this far. I guess some of it is some wrap up from a previous book from what I read, but for the most part, this doesn't follow the book. So like you said, it does feel almost like fan service where a lot of this season moved faster than the previous seasons, which makes sense because I'm not dissing the books at all. I don't read them. I've heard they're great, but I think it would have moved fast no matter what because you're getting towards the end anyway. So things are starting to fall in place regardless. If it didn't move fast, then the 13 episodes would have just felt rushed. So it definitely makes sense, and I don't think that it necessarily being not based on the books had anything to do with it. It's coming to an end. There have been some hiccups, I think, in this season. There's some slower episodes, and I think that's just me personally because there's been a couple of storylines here and there that when you have so many threads, it's such a huge universe, and they've done such a great job of kind of weaving all these storylines together. But me personally, there's been a couple here and there that I wasn't all that interested in, and there's been, for example, and I guess I'll touch a little bit more on this when we get to the story aspect of our review, but the Hound is not a character that I necessarily was too crazy about, and the fact that, spoiler alert, he comes back in this season, I didn't really care that much about. So there's a few things here and there that I wasn't crazy about, but for the most part, everything kind of falls into place in this season, and it definitely felt like it moved a lot quicker. There was a lot more big moments. I mean, this show has kind of built its reputation on big moments, but there's always been one or two a season, and I felt like there was 3, 4, 5 in this season. So,
in the last episode alone.
Yeah. So I definitely moved a lot quicker than previous seasons.
Cool.
So let's get right into the story. So what do you feel about the story?
I mean, you mentioned in your broad strokes that there have been offshoots of the story. Obviously, each episode is almost made up of different segments following different stories.
Yep.
And there's always throughout this show been various stories I didn't care for either. So what's important with season 6 is most of the stories that I didn't really care about have come to an end, usually with somebody dying. So season 6 is almost, you could almost say, the first season where I have an investment in almost every segment they go to each episode. It's very much narrowed down to the final stories that are probably going to all merge together in the final few seasons, which makes for a more interesting episode and a more interesting season because I'm emotionally involved in each of the characters that we're following at this point. There are exceptions here and there, like you mentioned, the Hound, like that. He's in one episode, and that episode isn't necessarily the highlight of the season, but for the most part, I'm consistently invested in what they're doing. There's so much stuff that happens this season that we could talk about and dive into that it's almost impossible to do so. So many big moments. Almost, I would say out of the 10 episodes, each episode ends with a big moment except for maybe 2 or 3. So you have like 7 big moments from episode to episode. And then the last episode, which, spoiler alert, I'm going to talk about when we get to our notable episodes, is just constant, like, moment after moment leading into big changes for Westeros. So, a lot of things happening. The one thing with the story that worries me, and this isn't so much pertaining to reviewing it as just, you talked about George R.R. Martin in the books. I hope that he has told these writers for the show what he is planning on doing, because I don't know how I would feel if he completes his books and they're completely different than what the show did.
Yeah.
I don't know how fans would take it. I haven't read the books, but it would make me kind of have to decipher what's the real Game of Thrones story, what George R.R. Martin wrote that I didn't read, or what was put on screen for the show. So I'm hoping that he's kind of sold his soul and given away all the secrets and the writers know what they're doing. But yeah, I don't really have too much else to say about the story besides diving into spoilers. I mean, it consistently moved, and I mentioned it in my broad strokes, so much fan service that I was constantly thinking, all right, too much good stuff is happening. Somebody's going to bite it that I really like. And there were a couple big deaths, that kind of hit home this season. But for the most part, it was finally what I've been wanting Game of Thrones to build to.
For sure. You said fan service earlier, and I completely agree with that. I actually have that exact phrase in my notes under story. Like I said, it may be unfair to say that it's moving fast and it's kind of coming to an end, and so the pieces are falling into place, and whether or not that's going to happen in the book the same way, like you said, we have no idea because the books aren't done yet, but I would assume that he's given them pointers. Me personally, I probably won't ever read the books, so it doesn't really make a whole lot of difference, but I know that the books have been out for a long time, and so fans have read them, and long before the show ever even came into existence. So they've been diehard fans of this universe for a while, and for the show to completely like take a drastic turn before the end, I highly doubt that he would let that happen. So I think he's given them pointers. Like I said, there's a few things here and there as far as the story is concerned that I'm not a huge fan of, like the Hound coming back, but like you said, it was only one episode. I think Hodor's End was one of the few, and it's going to make me sound like I'm not a fan of the show when I say this, but I really love the show, but I've watched so much TV and so many movies that I've kind of become callous when it comes to stuff like this. I don't get really too emotional, like some people do when it comes to movie and TV, but this is one of the few moments, kind of the end of his story. It, kind of got me a little bit. It was a weird, like, time loop thing that I wasn't crazy about just because I'm not a fan of time travel, but the fact that they kind of explained why he is the way he is in kind of a really touching moment it was just so well done and so fantastic. And I can't imagine that if it's not in the book, because like I said, some of this is in the book, some of it isn't, so I don't know what is and what isn't because I haven't read the books, but I can't imagine him leaving that out because it's so beautifully done. So I appreciated that. Cersei's arc that has been kind of going through the last couple of seasons. She's always been a character she seems like she's one step ahead of everybody.
Yeah.
And the last couple of seasons, she's kind of had that bite her in the ass a little bit as she tried something that didn't really work for her. And obviously it really backfired on her really hard last season. And she finally turned the tables in this season. It was really satisfying. Even though she's not a character that I like, it was really cool to see how she turned the tables and just
Absolutely.
The way it was shot and the kind of the mystery around it. You knew she had some trick up her sleeve, but the way they filmed it and the way they revealed it was just fantastic. It was really well done. Even though I'm not rooting for the character, it was just really cool to see.
That's a great point. Cersei is a character that I consistently root against, but even in that final moment for her in that season, it was gratifying to watch her kind of get revenge on the people that have tormented her for 2 seasons.
How'd you feel about the whole Jon Snow thing?
Well, at one point on this podcast, we did a favorite Game of Thrones character.
Yep.
And I said my favorite character is Jon Snow. So obviously I'm pretty on board with where things are going. I had so much happen with that character this season. I don't honestly know which plot point you're referring to. There's so much going on with him and so many revelations that...
Well, I mean, we all knew that he was going to get brought back. Yeah. I mean, they tried to keep it a secret, but it was like the worst kept secret. Yeah. Like everybody knew he was coming back.
So for that plot point, obviously him being brought back, him being my favorite character, I'm totally on board with it.
I don't know what they can do with that character now though, because I felt like they built their reputation on, well, anything could happen.
Yeah.
Any character could bite it at any point.
Yes.
Well, now, I mean, they can't go back to that well now. They've already got the shock value per se of killing him. Now you've brought him back. Well, you can't kill him now because people are they're going to doubt it. Well, if you do kill him again, you certainly can't bring him back again. So it's just like, I don't know what they can do with that character now.
I mean, I think they found what they could do with that character in the revelation that comes in the last episode.
Yeah.
I'm not going to spoil it because it's huge, but I mean, it's been a fan theory for so long and, I can't even dance around that one. So I'm going to drop it, but obviously I think there are big things in store with his character and him possibly meeting up with his aunt at some point.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, and there was a really well written article on slashfilm.com, and I'll post it to the show notes of this article. Actually, our friend over at The Obsessive Viewer is the one that brought it to my attention, kind of talking about how Game of Thrones kind of has a Jon Snow problem. I mean, he's a great character, and just to kind of sum up what I got from the article, again, I'll post it so you guys can read it if you're interested, but basically, every character in Game of Thrones has kind of either learned from their mistakes or kind of learned from their shortcomings, or they've paid for it, like most of the characters with their lives. Well, Jon Snow paid for it with his life, but now he's got brought back and he doesn't seem to have learned from it. And so even when, Sansa tells him what to do with Ramsay, he doesn't even listen to her. And so it's just, he's not learning from his mistakes, and Game of Thrones have kind of built their reputation on kind of punishing characters for not learning from their mistakes, and he's not getting punished.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that he's so conflicted that
again, that's not my theory.
In a way, he's like, he gave up the Night's Watch. Like he tossed that to the side after he was betrayed. So, I mean, he was punished, but at a certain point, you can't kill off every character that everyone a person roots for. Like, you've killed off so many. If he had really stayed dead, I don't know who I'd be rooting for at this point. I don't really like Daenerys that much. Like,
really?
Obviously I would take her.
I'm growing to like her. Like, the first couple of seasons, I felt like her storyline was completely disconnected with everything else going on.
It's finally going somewhere, yes.
Yeah.
But I mean, if she didn't have the dragons,
and she wasn't smoking hot, she gets naked like every season. It's fantastic.
I mean, obviously, I have more investment in that character now that she's, spoiler alert, on her way to Westeros. Or, not West, I guess she's, I don't know if Westeros is considered the whole area or not, but she's on her way to King's Landing.
Yeah.
So I have more investment in that character now, but I would feel like if he's dead, like I'm just forced to root for her. So at a certain point, he's been the most consistent character over 6 seasons. Like he's always been admirable in some way. So it's easy to root for him, and who knows if that will end up biting me in the ass. Like whenever it gets closer to its end, maybe then they'll use that as the opportunity to finally kill him off for shock value. But I don't know. He's just the only character left for me to personally root for and stay invested in the show.
And I agree with that. I mean, obviously he's a great character. I just don't. And it wasn't my theory. Again, it was article I read, but I kind of agreed what the point of the article was, that I think if you're gonna kind of make your reputation on doing a certain thing, but then you don't do it with a really popular character among fans, then you're kind of, I don't know, it's just kind of a double standard.
Yeah, I don't know.
But anyways, I mean, there's a lot of great stuff in this season. Like I said, the Sansa stuff. I loved how the growth of her character.
Yeah, for sure.
I didn't really like the Knights of the Vale stuff. Like, I don't care about them. Like, I don't care about that storyline.
I mean, it's not in it too much.
Well, it's not in it this season, but I mean, as the series as a whole.
Yeah.
I really don't care about them.
Yeah.
And I don't like that connection. And so, the fact that they came and saved the day, they needed something. I know Gandalf wasn't going to come and save the day at Helm's Deep, but I knew that something similar like that was going to happen. That actually is what it reminded me of when I was watching that episode. But I had completely forgotten about that they even had that conversation like a couple episodes ago. And so I don't know. I just don't like that they're the ones that came to the rescue, but I do like that it was Sansa that brought them there.
Yeah, I think that Sansa likes that she was the one that brought them there too, and I'm kind of nervous for her and Jon's relationship going forward.
Really? I'm actually digging that a lot.
I'm nervous for it because I just want all the Starks to get along and be at Winterfell and be a big happy family, well, what's left of them. Yeah. And we're almost there, so close, and then
there'd be one more if that motherfucker could zigzag.
Yeah, he would.
So I was yelling at the screen, man.
Yeah. So, did the actor that plays Rickon, did he have a single line this season?
Honestly, I forgot that he was even a character. To be honest with you, like I don't.
Obviously, I was kind of. I don't know. Yeah, you're right. He should have zigzagged.
He really should have.
I think that he was kind of like the runt. He was a little dumb.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, he was going to hit him regardless because that's what happened in the. I mean, it doesn't really. The show doesn't that episode doesn't happen the way it happens without him getting hit. So
yeah,
but it's just I thought that was weird.
Yeah.
Anyways, I mean, that's pretty much all I have for the story.
Yeah, like I said, I wish that we could sit here for like an hour and dissect every plot point because there's so much of it, but that would be boring and impossible.
Spoiler.
And spoilery. So, yeah, I was very happy, obviously, with the story of season 6.
So, I feel like we have to talk about performances because we always do with our reviews, but it's kind of silly at this point when you're getting 6 seasons of a show and they're really starting to eliminate a lot of characters. So some of the worse actors, I don't think there was ever really one that stuck out to me that was bad, but they're kind of weeding those people out.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot less characters on the show and everyone's just really good. I mean, I feel like that's kind of the general overview of the performances, that everybody knows their character and have built this great character. And so I think it's kind of pointless to talk about performances because everybody's good. There's not really one that sticks out to me that doesn't do a good job.
Yeah, I mean, we can just gloss over it. All of these people have had multiple years to develop these characters and practice at being these characters. So,
yeah, what's her name that plays Sansa? I mean, obviously
Sophie Turner.
Yeah, she did not do a very good job in X-Men Apocalypse, but the more I see her on Game of Thrones, I'm becoming much more of a fan of her character on Game of Thrones. If you haven't already been able to tell, I have a bit of a thing for redheads, so that was always going to happen. Anyways,
I would say that, the show took a chance in its first season. I don't know if it necessarily knew where it was going to go with things, but you hire Sophie Turner and I forget her name who plays Arya, and even the boy that plays Bran. You hire these kid actors that are going to be doing this show for whenever it's all said and done, 8 years, and will be almost adult, if not adult, by the time that it's done. You're putting a lot of investment on them.
I'm really hoping that she's already an adult because I just said a really creepy thing about her.
I really hope she's under 18, but I think she probably is right around 18. But no,
you're on a diet doesn't mean you can't look at the menu. That was the creepiest thing I've ever seen.
All right, I'm going to be done with what I was going for there. I'm going to let you simmer in that.
Are you going to look up her age?
I'm fucking right, I am.
Anyways, but yeah, I think she's definitely grown as an actress.
Aw, she's 20.
Jackpot. Anyways, no, I think she's grown as an actress, and I like to think now that X-Men Apocalypse was just a mess of a movie, and that's why she was bad in it. That was my original point before we got into that creepy vibe. But yeah, I mean, performances are all great. They've built these.
All of these actors have aged well, and so have their performances.
For sure. So the last thing that we're going to talk about with these TV reviews is we're going to talk about a couple of notable episodes each. We'll probably pick at least one that's the same. I'll let you start, Tyler. What is your first notable episode?
The Door.
Okay. We're going to be. So that was my first one as well.
This episode's notable for me, obviously, with the climax of the episode. Bran and Hodor are characters that we have not seen since season 4. They were not present in season 5. So not only having these characters back, but having such a big climax with them was really fun to see. This episode in particular is heartbreaking. I don't want to fucking spoil too much, but I think that you might be the same as me and have a special place in your heart for Hodor due to the first year of Indie PopCon.
Yep.
Kristen Nairn, and I don't know if I'm saying his name right, but Nairn. He was at the first year of Indie PopCon. He was very close to our booth. He seemed like a really nice guy. So it was always a character I kind of rooted for just because he was there at one of our favorite conventions, Inception. So it was kind of cool to see him get his episode, see why Hodor is who he is, and watch him have to sacrifice himself for Bran. So
spoiler alert.
At this point, I mean, we've danced around it so much. I don't know. It's a really good episode. It was one of the more heartbreaking moments of the season.
Yeah, like I said, I don't get emotional with this show as some people do, but that's just the way I'm wired. It doesn't have anything to do with the quality of the show. I love the show, but
I think that's kind of how psychopaths are wired too.
I prefer the term a sociopath.
Oh, okay.
Anyways, but yeah, I got pretty emotional when you see the end of his story and you kind of understand why he is who he is. And I mean, that's what makes this episode so notable is, I mean, and that's what kind of makes this show great is that he's not a character that really plays a big role other than kind of just being the pack mule.
Yeah.
But he's just kind of grown into this lovable character that everybody kind of roots for because he's just kind of a dummy. But you finally figure out why he is the way he is. And the show has done a great job of taking these side characters and just building them up and having their own little arcs, and you root for him. And it was sad to see him go in the way that he went, but it was so satisfying at the same time. And like I said, you just figure out why he is the way he is and it's so beautiful.
Yeah, it was. It was a really, really great episode and an end to a very simple character that was very loved.
Yeah, for sure. And then the White Walkers, of course, we don't see a ton of them in the
No.
show. They're kind of just mentioned, but we haven't seen, other than, I think, was it season 5 where they're the wildlings?
Yeah.
I mean, that was obviously the big White Walker scene previous to this particular episode. And so it's always kind of cool to see them actually do battle and do something. And
Yeah.
other than just kind of getting the mention every once in a while. So that was pretty cool as well.
Absolutely.
That was my first. So, you snatched one from me. I'm just going to go ahead and go talk about my second one. And hopefully that doesn't overlap with yours as well. Mine is Battle of the Bastards.
Nope.
Okay, cool. This is just a fucking cool episode.
Oh, yeah.
It was just a great, it was just a huge spectacle. I hate to go back to the Lord of the Rings reference again, but it was just like, it reminded me a lot of Return of the King. It was just a big battle. And this show doesn't do it as much as other TV shows do it, but they do it every once in a while. But TV shows in general seem to tease a lot, and they never really pay off the way you want it to. This show, one of the reasons why it's so great and why people love it so much is that it does. And I was kind of hesitant thinking, well, there's just no way that they're just going to have an all out battle. Ramsay is such a villainous character. He's going to find some way to get out of this. And the fact that they did do battle and the fact that it wasn't just Jon Snow just mopping it up.
Yeah.
It was, you thought he was going to meet his end again. And of course, and then you have the Gandalf scene with the Knights of the Vale, coming in, swooping in and saving the day. Ramsay kind of finally getting an end, and the fact that it was just so brutal and so satisfying. It was just fantastic from beginning to end.
Oh, absolutely. We've said fan service a few times throughout this review, and we've spent 3 or 4 seasons now hating Ramsay Bolton and the things that he's done, and to finally get a culmination of that character arc and see him finally get what was coming to him was so great. And then, like you said, one of probably the best battle to ever be on Game of Thrones. The White Walker battle was pretty awesome though. But as far as, army versus army, like this is probably the most money they've spent on a battle scene, and it was well crafted. I believed that what was happening. I was nervous for a little bit. I kind of figured Jon Snow would make it out alive, but I forget the character's name, the wildling with the red beard.
Yeah, I thought he was done for.
I thought for sure that dude was done for.
Oh, yeah.
And him making it out was great. It was just a great, great episode that set up for an awesome season finale.
For sure. What is your second episode?
The season finale.
Oh, okay. Cool, man.
The Winds of Winter, which is the title of the next Game of Thrones book that George R.R. Martin is chugging along on. This episode was supersized. I believe it was about 20 minutes longer than the typical episode. And just from the get-go, constantly big stuff happening. Big stuff setting up the last 2 seasons. My wife was in the other room when I was watching it, and I was being verbal watching the show by myself. Just the stuff that was happening. Like, you start with the Cersei stuff, and that takes an unexpected turn with Tommen, that I did not see coming at all.
No.
And then you go to the Jon Snow Sansa stuff, and spoiler alert, Jon Snow's declared King of the North, which is huge, especially with me being such a big Jon Snow fan, like I've said. And then we've kind of spoiled it already with what happens with Dany. She's finally on her way to King's Landing. And there's some cool stuff that happens with her and Tyrion. So just a bunch of
really satisfying dragon stuff.
Yeah. Just so much satisfying stuff in that episode, and so much big stuff that leaves me wanting more. And I just can't wait till next April. Just that episode alone was fantastic.
We finally got dragons. You've seen the dragons,
Yeah.
sure, but that's one thing along with the White Walkers that I mentioned before that Game of Thrones has been guilty about teasing. They teased those 2 things, I think, way too much. And we finally got some really cool dragon stuff. we got some really cool White Walker stuff a couple episodes previous. So I thought that was really cool. And they're setting the stage so well for the last 2 miniature seasons, I guess.
I can't believe I was running through the stuff that happened in the season finale, and I forgot to mention the Arya stuff. Arya's moment in the season finale was so satisfying as well.
Yeah.
Like, this season in particular kind of harkened back to the first couple seasons better than like 4 and 5 did. Like, we saw a lot of stuff that kind of related back to the Red Wedding. We saw a lot of stuff with young Ned Stark and young Robert Baratheon, which was really cool. So I really liked that it kind of revisited the start of the show to kind of set up the finale of it.
Yeah, for sure.
That's all I got.
Okay, cool, man. So that is our review of Game of Thrones Season 6. Do you want to go ahead and give it a star rating?
I think I have to go 4.5.
Okay, cool, man.
For Season 6. I think that if this show nails its final 2 seasons and nails the ending of a show like this, it could possibly be my favorite show of all time.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely in the consideration. I think we're in early talks. I just sounded like we were like talking about a movie or something. No, we're discussing maybe doing something very similar with our favorite movies that we did last year, kind of breaking up our favorite TV shows of all time into 2 separate episodes for each host. So maybe Game of Thrones makes that list. I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't realize. I forgot that we were talking about doing that. So
yeah, we just have to find obviously 4 weeks to do it because, especially with TV, it's going to be really tough to.
Yeah, with movies, like if I wasn't sure about something making the list, I could go back and watch it really quick.
Yeah,
it's hard to do that with TV shows.
Yeah, for sure. But anyways, I think I'm going to go with, I don't know, I had originally put 4 stars, but the more we talked about it, the more I really love this season. So I'm going to go with 4.5 as well.
Awesome.
All right. So it's your week for nerd favorites.
All right. We've kind of done this a little bit the last few months. I'm not going to do necessarily a favorite, but I'm just curious, who would you like to see on the Iron Throne at the end of Game of Thrones? So my answer is probably pretty obvious. It'd be awesome to see Jon Snow as king. I don't know that will happen. They kind of maybe set that in motion. I think that he is the rightful king if you go back to the Targaryen timeline. So if he's not going to be able to be on there, like if that's too obvious of an answer, it'd be kind of cool to see Sansa somehow. I don't know how, but somehow end up queen of King's Landing, just because she's been through so much through this entire series. So it'd be kind of cool to see her be triumphant at the end of it. But if I had to pick, I'd like to see Jon Snow find out his true name and be sitting on that throne.
I assumed that when you posed that question that you were going to pick Jon Snow, and I immediately in my mind picked Sansa.
Oh yeah.
And so when you started talking about it, I was like, you're stealing my thunder. No, I would prefer if it was her. Like, I honestly, if I had to choose even between those two, I'd prefer it would be her.
I don't think that Jon would want it.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I think she would be better at it.
Yeah. Which is kind of, again, a spoiler back to the season finale. But whenever they declared Jon as King of the North, I'm surprised he accepted it.
Yeah, he doesn't seem like he would want. Like, I mean, he was already the commander of, what is it? The Lord
Commander of the Night's Watch, yeah.
And that didn't turn out well. So, I mean, he did it well, but yeah. I think she was, the way the Battle of the Bastards went, I think she would be better at it.
Yeah.
I think just the way the personalities of those two characters, I think she would be more level-headed, and I think she would just be better at ruling, and I think that he could be a great hand.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So I think that, and I don't think that they would fight with each other. Like, I think they've kind of accepted each other's roles and kind of appreciate what the things that the other can offer, especially at how horrible the battle went for Jon at first, and that kind of the fact that she came in and swooped in and saved the day. I think that he appreciates what she has to bring a little bit more than before the battle. So I think that they would work well together. I don't know if that's necessarily going to happen. Like you said, that whole theory that has come true, that fan theory that has come true about Jon's true parents, I think that that's kind of setting the stage for him to kind of have a place at the table as far as the true heirs.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see where that goes, like how he aligns with Daenerys at this point, if they're friend or foe. So,
yeah, I mean, I think at this point she's pretty determined.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't think that she's going to give it up at this point. So
yeah. We'll see, man.
All right, so that is episode 101 of the Nerd You're Looking For podcast. As always, you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram. It's both at the Nerds Podcast. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Google+. Vote for us for Podcast of the Month at podcastland.com. Comment, subscribe to our YouTube channel. I will be posting a new Let's Play series of my walkthrough of TMNT Mutants in Manhattan. I'm hoping to post it in a couple of days. I'm still working my way through it, so I was hoping to record all of it and then post it as I was editing, but that hasn't happened yet. So we'll see. But definitely next week for sure I'll start posting it, whether or not I am done with it completely. You can also check out our Twitch channel, which apparently Tyler's been doing a weekly stream Mondays at 9 p.m. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right, cool, man. I'm definitely looking forward to checking that out. I have not watched it, but I'm sure it's great. Rate, review us on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, basically any good podcatcher you use. We're on it. You can also email us at thenerdyourlookingfor@gmail.com. Me personally, I will be performing at the Summer Series Comedy Contest at Bradley's Bar and Grill at 8 p.m. on July 15th. That is in Lagodi, Indiana. I will also be opening for Kresh Mohan. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. There's no way that I did pronounce it correctly. On August 22nd at Shorty's on Green River Road. I wasn't sure if I was going to get that show because the main venue burnt to the ground last week. But he actually opened up another venue on Green River Road. And so the show is still on as planned. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. That's going to be awesome. I'm actually going to do like 20 to 30 minutes. So it's going to be interesting. I've never done that much time before.
Nice.
So we'll see how it goes.
Nice, man.
All right. For Patrick Hoot,
Tyler Hunt.
we are the Nerds You're Looking For. Take it easy, guys.
See you guys later.